Welcome to another episode of The Watchdog with me, Low Key, here on Mint Press. As you know, we are regularly going against the grain with stories which are marginalized by the mainstream media. And today, we really have a big one. This is a story which, despite having massive reverberations across the country, has not been covered by any mainstream media outlets that I have seen yet today. Now, Elbit Systems is Israel's largest arms manufacturer. At the end of 2021, it had 10 sites across the UK and 4 subsidiaries. Today, it has only 9 sites across the UK and only 3 subsidiaries. This is the story of how an activist group, in tandem with the local community, courageously stood up and shut down an Elbit Systems arms factory in the British town of Oldham. From Israel's drone killing of 4 Palestinian boys playing on the beach in 2014 to the apartheid wall in the West Bank, which the International Court of Justice has deemed illegal, the fingerprints of Elbit Systems can be found. From the anti-migrant infrastructure in Arizona to the Indian Army occupying Kashmir, Elbit Systems profiteers. UK-based activist group have launched a relentless campaign to shut down Elbit Systems factories in the country through direct action. They claim to have carried out almost 100 actions in a year, causing almost £20 million worth of damage to Elbit's operations here. Their defense is that criminal damage to stop war crimes is no offense. There is yet to be one conviction of Palestine Action activists of any crime in British law. They claim Elbit Systems fears stepping into the court with them and having the reality of its operations discussed openly. Throughout Israel's May 2021 campaign in Gaza, in which it killed hundreds of besieged people, displaced thousands, and destroyed much vital infrastructure, Elbit factories in the UK were key focal points for protesters. During the period, Palestine Action shut down an Elbit Systems factory in the city of Leicester for 6 consecutive days. Initially, the fire brigade were called to remove them. However, they issued a statement in solidarity with the protesters and refused to follow orders. They were joined by hundreds of the local community who blocked the police's passage and stopped them from removing the Palestine Action activists on the roof of the factory. Across the country, communities linked arms with Palestine Action protesters in attempting to repulse the arms company from their localities. One such community was in the town of Oldham. They, in coalition with Palestine Action, launched a weekly protest outside the Elbit subsidiary Ferranti Technology, a factory that has been the site of actions in the past. Now, while we have seen this sustained campaign to shut down Elbit Systems factories, what has become clear to us is this kind of community-enforced, bottom-up BDS is here to stay. Now, today, we will talk to some key figures and participants in what happened in Oldham. It is absolutely essential that our understanding of this does not focus just on the activist side of it, but also on the community side of it, and think about the way in which having a community turn against the presence of this death merchant in their vicinity was absolutely vital to making the presence of that death merchant untenable for the future. So we are joined by Adi Mormek of Manchester Palestine Action, an organizer against Elbit Systems since the rooftop occupation in 2014. He has been an activist and a teacher in Gaza for 2 years, and it would be great to speak to him about that experience today. We are also joined by Mehek, who is a 20-year-old from Oldham studying forensic science at the University of Huddersfield, and she has been protesting against the Elbit site since the bombings in May. Wakas is also from Oldham and is a co-founder of Oldham Peace and Justice, a group that focused on the Elbit campaign. He has regularly volunteered in Palestine with the International Solidarity Movement, notably in the Jordan Valley and El Khalil, also known as Hebron. Thank you so much to all of you for coming today. I really, really appreciate your presence here. First, I'd like to start with Wakas. if you could just point out for us a timeline of the trajectory of this momentous campaign, which has inspired so many around the world, in fact. Just, yeah.
Muted. Oh, well, I was looking back and I tried putting it all in a timeline for you. And what we've achieved is just beyond me. It started off, Oldham Peace and Justice came about in July 2018, but there was actions happening outside Oldham Franti well before that. And that was Manchester Palestine Action coming in, that was a few local individuals. And we decided to have a public meeting in a church in the centre of Oldham. And we told ourselves, do you know what? Let's go to this meeting and see who turns up. We were expecting 5 people. We had about 50 people turn up. And from that, we decided to set up Oldham Peace and Justice. And we decided that we are stronger in numbers. Since 2018, we have been getting petitions, asking questions. We've been doing FOIs. And we've been having regular stalls in the centre of Oldham. And I think it was the stalls when people found out that there was an Israeli Elbit Systems weapons factory in Oldham. They were horrified. Franti Technology is an Oldham brand. It's been in Oldham for over 100 years. People within Oldham Peace and Justice had family members that worked in the old Franti factory. So when they found out that Elbit Franti was complicit in war crimes, that was it for people. And moving on towards the last year, on 2019, 2020, we kept on demonstrating outside that factory. But the key point was collecting information and sending emails out and getting as many people to turn up outside the Elbit Franti. We did ask questions to the local council, and after like 3 years of work or 2 years of work, we got a council meeting, jumped over so many hurdles, and we only got 5 minutes in a council meeting. So 3 years of work for a 5 minutes council meeting, and literally they shut us down. We asked them, are the weapons in Franti Technologies or Elbit Systems being used in Gaza? And they replied back, we don't know. The second questions we asked, would they support us in moving to green technology? And the second was, yes, we will. No councillor asked any questions, no follow-on questions. It seems like it was agreed from all political parties and all councillors in that council meeting that that was the statement and that was their answer, and we weren't going to talk about anything else. So local campaigning is great, but the fruit that you get from it is not very much. But what we did have is a core group of people that were willing to go outside Elbit Franti every Tuesday since May, and we blocked the road, and that's what got us the attention. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but there's so much more, but I tried cutting it down to quite a short point.
Please feel free to take your time and go ahead. This is your show. If at any point you want anything edited, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We can have that.
Some of the other things we did, we asked for FOIs from the government to find out where Elbit was exporting its weapons from Franti. And they did say, we have got records, we have got them there, we do know where they've gone, but it will undermine the process if we put that information into the public domain. Because once it's, you don't need to know, literally that's what they say, you don't need to know. And they said in the future, Elbit Franti might not tell us where they export their weapons to. So we don't want to damage the process. And I went, what a rubbish answer that was. And that nearly took us a year to get around as well. So yeah, the Oldham group did do so much work behind the scenes, but the reward was very little. But when it came down to the direct actions, we could put our hands on our heart and say we've done everything in our power to draw attention to what's happening in Oldham.
So what we've identified in this brief, concise timeline by Wakas is the stall, the importance of the stall, the importance of the FOIs to some extent with its limitations, the importance of, getting local representatives to feel a bit nervous and anxious about it, but again, with its limitations, but also the regular mobilizations outside the factory. Now, the way that this story is being spun, and I would say quite half-heartedly, and that would also be something for us to get into a little bit later about why the media reaction to Palestine Action is so tepid, actually, when you think about it. And my theory is it's an intention to avoid drawing people's attention to the Elbit sites in the country, because we know how the Israel lobby in this country functions when it attacks. And it's yet to move, really, obviously it will be moving through lawfare and other means and through intelligence and surveillance and other things. But specifically on this issue, it's quite interesting that they are very hesitant to draw attention to those factories. But the question which I wanted to give to Adi next was about this spin that Elbit seemed to be trying to put on it, which that it's just a reorganization of their company. When we look back at their annual reports in the years past, they were very, very positive about what was happening in Britain. They were, talking about how great things were going. In addition to that, we do know that Ferranti Technologies was acquired by Elbit Systems for, about £12 million, and they've just sold it for £9 million. So they have made a loss on Ferranti Technologies. That absolutely has to be emphasized as much as possible. Adi, how do you interpret, as someone that's been working on this for a very long time, how do you interpret the spin that Elbit is attempting to put on this story?
I mean, if you read the statement from Elbit about restructuring, it was almost just taken out of like a template for how to disguise the fact that you're desperately trying to sell for other reasons entirely. This is not their intention. There was a great article recently written by Shehiva about this monumental victory of where we've actually pushed this Elbit arms company out of our entire town in Oldham. And he was talking about how Elbit's entire policy has been to buy up, just expand. And this is the first derailment of that. And the reason why, of course, they wouldn't be pointing at the actions against them as to why that could be is because these actions have been so effective, and they do not clearly want to show that they have been forced out of the town. But this is the most blatant example of immobilizations and direct action, people basically saying enough is enough to force this abominable arms company out of the whole town. After as Wakas talked about, the mobilizations that took place locally, the campaigners that came out weekly, and of course, what turned the screw was the Palestine Action arriving and a lot of the direct actions that took place. There was occupations. They went inside, disrupted the functioning of the factory, destroyed weapons. All this kind of stuff has been taking place that really almost was just accelerated the campaign beyond belief. And of course, the buildings then becomes uninsurable. All of these extra aspects. If loads and loads of people, both locally and coming in, decide that they are going to hell-bent on stopping this weapons factory from functioning, it will stop. And that's what the biggest story is here. If people decide to do it, so clearly Elbit is not going to state that they are leaving because the whole town said no, and that people have actually risked themselves on so many occasions like they have for Palestine Action to stop that factory, to end the arms development as well as sales from the mass murder of Palestinians and many more beyond, like Kashmir, Myanmar and other parts of the world, then they are out of this town if you continue to do that. And this is what happened. So they are running scared. They sold on a loss. So they are desperately looking for a quick sell. There's no, this is after 11, 12 years they sold on a loss. When you look at the prices of in the Northwest, they've gone through the roof of land and property, and they're selling for $3 million less than they bought it. this is Elbit running scared. And obviously, this is a great example for other cities and other people around to both accompany this wonderful community mobilization with the direct action, which was a terrific formula that, if replicated, for me, would get an arms factory out of any of those cities. And that's what we're hoping to do.
Can I just come in and just add something to that? In 2018, we started handing leaflets to the door around the buildings around for anti-technology, and we didn't get a very nice response. That's a nice way to put it. We're knocking on doors, knocking to people. We had leaflets thrown back in our face, but we kept on going. Give that to last year, and we were hearing if Frantic Technologies or Elbit Systems is not going to stand up for themselves and let people come in and smash them windows in every other week, we're not going to defend that company. And that was the nail point. That was it for me. They didn't really care about the arms trade or Palestine or Israel. They just went, that factory is in my town and vandals are not going to come. They called them vandals. And when we said a court of law has never found them to be vandals, they didn't really have a leg to stand on. And that's when the tide started to change. The persistency of Palestine Action and local activists going week in, week out. So I think that was the sea change on the streets and on people's front doors. And I think that's where grassroots needs to go back to knocking on doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in a time where we have algorithmic suppression, we have shadow banning, we have Munna al-Kurd trying to transmit the ethnic cleansing of Sheikh Jarrah, and Instagram literally stopping and blocking her doing that. You know, we have to remember that on the oversight board for Facebook, the company which governs Instagram, you have Amy Palmer. Now, Amy Palmer is not only formally an employee of the Israeli Ministry of Injustice, where she established the cyber unit for military intelligence surveillance of Palestinians in many different ways. In addition to that, she was a member of the Israel Land Council, which actually is responsible for displacing and forcibly removing Palestinians from their land. Now, this person is one of 20 people on Facebook's content moderating oversight board. So this is the level of entryism that we are talking about. Now, it would be great to get your perspective, Mehek, on the community component to this. You became involved. You are part of a generation that, as you will know better than me, has been systematically demobilized and depoliticized by the Prevent program, by in all public institutions. You know, you would have been literally 12 or 13, I estimate, at the time where Prevent became a statutory duty. Now, the Prevent program is basically the institutionalizing of surveillance of Muslims within this country. What it means is that if you change your haircut, if you are late to class, if you talk a lot in class, if you don't talk much in class, all types of very trivial things can mean that within your educational institution or place of work, and let's not forget that private organizations like McDonald's, like River Island, like Tesco are also now have opted to be part of Prevent. It's not a statutory duty for these private companies, but they've chosen to do that. The point is that for all types of arbitrary, trivial reasons, you can essentially be put on this surveillance conveyor belt, which looks at you as a, you know, they do not want, essentially they've established a hierarchy of political subjectivity within this country. And that is the beautiful thing about what happened in Oldham, is it's a community saying, we have political agency, and this is how we are going to assert it against a major, massive arms company, which kills people for profit and for fun, essentially. So Mehek, please tell me about your involvement with this campaign and the involvement of others like you in the community.
I just want to start off by saying that I had no idea in all my 20 years that Elbit factory even existed. And I go to university in Huddersfield. I take the bus, and the bus goes past the factory twice a day for me. And when I found out, I was shocked, like completely blown my mind. And I was like, how did I not know this existed? And I just want to say that I found out about these protests and societies from social media. Back in May, I shouldn't say it, but it was trending at the time. Social media, it blew up, and that's how I found out. The first protest I probably went to was in Manchester on Winslow Road. And after that, I found out that protests were being held in Oldham. So I was like, what can I do to not feel so useless seeing these videos of the bombings and children and just death? It was so heartbreaking. So I went every week to the factory, and the community was amazing. But I just want to say that I was really disappointed in Oldham in itself, because the minority, only a small amount of people from Oldham showed up. Other people from Sheffield, Halifax, Huddersfield, Rochdale, all around England showed up, but there was only a small amount of people from Oldham that showed up. So I felt responsible as well. So I was like, I will show up to the factory every week. And there was a quote that says, what's the point of having a voice if you're going to be silent in those moments you shouldn't be? And that gave me an opportunity to voice how I feel and to inspire other people to use their voices as well. And it was just amazing to see the turnout week after week. Blocking the road, it helps the protests do work. But Pal Action, they are but ultimately tipped the factory being sold. And direct action does work. So I just want to say that it does work.
No, yeah, fantastic. Absolutely right. And I think one of the things that when we look at the amount of actions that Palestine Action have taken, when we look at the state repression that has been aimed at them, whether it's being stopped under Schedule 7 Terrorism Act, of course, we know that over 500,000 people have been stopped by that act since it was established. 85% of those are Muslim people. We know that you're 154 times more likely to be stopped under Schedule 7 if you are deemed to be an IC4, which is a Pakistani male, the way the police, or a man of Pakistani origin, the way the police define it. Now, obviously, those laws, which are in many cases more invasive than actually being arrested. So when you're arrested, you have the right of no comment in reply to questions asked of you by the police. However, under Schedule 7, it is illegal for you not to answer any question which is asked to you, and you actually have to give over your electronic items and give the police access to them. So these are the kind of laws that are being wielded against Palestine Action. But on the other side of it, as was pointed out by Wakas, and also in addition to that, when we look at the precedent of the Raytheon 9 shutting down the Raytheon factory in Derry at a time when the Israeli army was using Raytheon weaponry to pound Lebanese and Palestinians within Lebanon, you know that this organization was able to not only be acquitted, but when they entered the court, they said, we turned the company Raytheon and put them on trial. We turned them into the accused. And today, there is not a Raytheon factory in Derry. And that is the lesson. And, you know, it's important to communicate to young people. It's understandable. Not everyone can do. And that's a good thing about what happened in Oldham, is that it's not saying to everyone that they have to take direct action and enter the factories. They can be standing outside the factory. They can be on stools. They can be going door to door. Even if you enter the factory, you will it's very unlikely that you would be convicted. And even that's probably understating it. Adi, could you break down for us 2 of the legal victories, or just give us a brief overview of them, which Palestine Action have achieved recently?
Yeah, well, that was the first victory was Staffordshire, and that was for an action at the Shenstone arms factory. And I think this was about a month ago, and I was there. We were there supporting them at the court case. Just as an aside to that, one important factor about the local support in Oldham was that there was always queues of people being there for arrestee support at the police station as soon as they get arrested. So a key aspect of the community organising was that they were all ready to drop everything and then support those doing the direct action. So it was really a very joint enterprise in that regard. And that's where I think the groups working together was especially useful in Oldham for this campaign. And when I talk about the formula, I'm talking about direct action being a key component, but obviously there's the mobilization outside, but there was disruption because we always blocked the entire road. So that will still stop the functioning of the easy functioning of the factory. You add to that the direct action. You add to that groundswell of support on the ground, the community who are always willing to go straight off to the police station, wait for hours out in the cold, do shifts, wait for everybody to come out. And this was again the case. We had huge support when there was the court case. And a key aspect of the court case was that there was criminal damage in that case, and certainly disruption. And there was people there who were making the case in the court. Now, this was a magistrate's court because the damage was not exceeding a certain amount. So it's a lower level court. So you have a judge. Now, with the juries, a lot of the victories that have happened recently with the Extinction Rebellion on the environment and lots of other cases is that, and the Colston statue, of course, is that the juries are normal people. And if you talk about Israel literally killing 500 children in 51 days in the bombing of Gaza in 2014, or you talk about them destroying house after house in East Jerusalem and the mothers trying to pick up whatever bits they could find of their jewelry or, family photos. And a lot of people like us, me and Wakas, have been to Palestine, and you're giving that direct witness statement. A jury is very likely to just see things as they are and take on board what you're saying and treat all humans with an equal go of it, and then say this is absolutely outrageous. These are the biggest gun runners in town, and normally they'd be chucked off the streets, no question about it, given all the evidence of what they're doing. Well, this was a judge at Staffordshire. Now, judges are a little bit harder to move, but this judge saw some incredible witness statements from those that were the defendants. And they were really incredible and heartfelt, and really exactly why I'm willing to sacrifice myself, because the Palestinians have been walking and marching towards the bullets week after week in Gaza just to say this is my land, or the Palestinians standing in front of their houses trying to stop them from getting knocked down in Sheikh Jarrah, and they're getting shot or beaten up or imprisoned. So these are the decisions being made by people, and they're transmitting those in court as to why they're willing to do all the way, step out of their normal lives and do this. And for once, say, if we're going to say we're all Palestinian, then we're going to step up and behave like it and take a hit occasionally. And it may be that we take a hit one day for some of these actions. But ultimately, what is a hit in England compared to what Palestinians have been going through week in, week out, day in, day out, the trauma, the tragedy that I saw from families that had lost loved ones, the hospital, the screaming as the kids came in one by one in the intensive care unit, being rolled around and just about to finish. And this is the real true horror and sharp edge. So what it is the judge listened to some of these testimonies, people that have been to Palestine as well, and just said, yeah, actually, that was proportionate. And they got off. And this is the case in Staffordshire. In Birmingham, it's just been a victory again. And I think while the decision didn't even get to the decision, because they were still waiting for evidence from the CPS and Elbit, and so the case was thrown out. But what it does show from the Birmingham case is that Elbit and the landlords of Elbit are really in a big mess. And I've been in, I've done direct action. I was on the roof of the Elbit factory in Oldham in 2019. And at that period, Before, we'd had actions in Oldham. I've been on the roof in 2014 in Shenstone at the UAV engine subsidiary of Elbit. In 2014, there's been actions, loads of actions at the Instro Arms factory in Kent, another Elbit site. Tamworth, there was actions there. And these actions were ongoing. And until Palestine Action came and really started to just say, right, we're cranking it up. We're going to do it. We're in it to win it. There'd been a lot of these kind of sporadic actions sort of spaced out. And in the action on the Elbit factory in Oldham, where I was on the roof for 3 days in July 2019, we at the time we got off. We got arrested, obviously. We get put in the cell. Then the next morning, the next morning we're released, and I'm released without charge. So at that point, they weren't even getting to court. Like literally, I was saying no further action. And then on the Monday, I went in and collected from the police station my climbing equipment and everything else. So this was the extent to which Elbit are actually so hands-off, because no arms factory has ever had this level of introspection before. Britain is the second largest exporter of arms in the world. This tiny island has been manufacturing these instruments of death for so long to so many horrific regimes. And here we are now, finally, having a group like Palestine Action that has just decided to put so much pressure on to the point where these arms companies are just running around scared. They don't know what to do because they've never had that level of exposure before. They should have done a long time ago, because this is one of the elephants in the room in terms of what Britain is contributing horrifically to the world, this arms industry. But it's finally, there's a group that has said, we're going to take the sacrifice. We're going to go for it. We know that these weapons, it's been truly documented for years and years that these companies are making their weapons, developing them as battle tested on Palestinian population in Gaza. It's mostly kids. We are going to take action. And actually, this result in Birmingham is a reflection of all this, because they are not forthcoming with their evidence, because they're trying to figure out how on earth they can win these cases, that they're worried that they're going to lose. Why? Because they've committed war crimes, Israel. These weapons are used to kill so many people. They don't know where to turn, because finally they're being exposed, and they've never had that. They've never had to actually almost confront their own crimes before. So how on earth do they make the case in court? So we've had two big victories, both obviously there in Staffordshire Crown Court and Staffordshire Magistrates Court, and now in the Magistrates Court in Birmingham. And this is a great sign for the cases to come. And they might not win every one, but we are going really well so far. And ultimately what it's doing is it's saying that people are willing to go to court and take action. And even better, they know exactly the reasons for doing it, and they are able to justify it in court, to the point where human beings, even judges as well as juries, can say, yeah, absolutely, we should be closing these arms factories everywhere. You're free to go.
This is a question, I guess, for Mehek and Wakas, or Wakas. The mainstream media, I noticed when Palestine Action shut down Arconic, the company that made the cladding on the Grenfell Tower, 6 millimeters of polyethylene in it. It has been deemed by the first phase of the inquiry by Sir Martin Moore-Bick to be the main promoter of the fire. When they shut down this factory, because it also makes the F-35 with BAE Systems and Lockheed Martin, and of course Netanyahu had claimed that the F-35 was used in the recent campaign in Gaza. Israel has used it for bombing raids on Iraq and Syria. Also, now when Palestine Action shut down that Arconic factory on the anniversary, the 4th anniversary of the fire at Grenfell Tower, you had almost a comprehensive media blackout on that shutdown, which was quite amazing, because you've got the whole country making stories about Grenfell on that day. You've got the main campaign groups for Grenfell tweeting about the action, saying they are in support of it. You have, when we gathered at the foot of the tower, the biggest cheer of the day came when we mentioned what Palestine Action did in Birmingham. You had for several days the community coming out and supporting those on the roof. You had the fire brigade, again, refusing to remove them and stating their solidarity with them. You even had Arconic, the company, launch a letter campaign in the community to try and beautify their image and ingratiate themselves to the locals. Now, you had such a blackout on that. Could we say that there is a systematic attempt to actually discourage people away from even looking at these factories? Why is it that the mainstream media have not covered this momentous campaign of almost 100 actions that Palestine Action have been responsible over the last year, and these mobilizations of communities from Blackburn to Leicester to Birmingham to Oldham? What could be the reason for this media blackout?
Meg, do you want to go first? Or I don't mind.
You can say it, go on.
All right, thank you. So the blackout about this victory, the local newspaper did cover it, but it seemed like it was word for word from the Elbit Systems statement that they released.
Right.
Yeah, and I just think Elbit Franti at that time already notified local press. They were like already on their PR campaign to nullify any local response. Why I think there's a media blackout, I think this campaign gives hope to so many people. That is a worry, because Oldham is one of the most deprived towns in the country. It got something like £31 million in 2019 from the government to develop some flight simulators. At the time, Oldham Council had to make millions of pounds of cuts to social care, child housing, litter, bin pickups and all that. And people were getting really frustrated about what was happening in Oldham. And if people realise that we can get these weapons companies out that take so much of our money from research and development and central government funding, these arms companies will have no money at all. And I think the reason why the mainstream media is ignoring it, because people will start asking questions and people will start getting organised and they believe they can make a change. Because most of the time when we were out of Oldham, we're like, what's the point of doing it? Nothing's going to change. What's the point of getting out? What's the point of writing to my MP? They never listen. They're in it for themselves. And it was even magnified during the pandemic when, how do I explain it? When there was so much corruption in government, people had just given up. They said, what's the point of speaking out? But this victory, I think it gives hope to people, and hope and knowledge is a worrying thing. An organised community, in some eyes, is very dangerous. And I think what we have in Oldham is an organised community now, and they're looking around what we're going to do next. And we have got plans in the pipeline, but the blackout gives hope. It stops hope. It stops people getting in touch with each other. It stops building links. It stops people building networks. And I think that's the aim of a blackout. So one of the aims in Oldham Peace and Justice that we're aiming for is building them networks, because people are not going to know about this. We need to go around the country and tell people what we've achieved. Sorry, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just a quick addition to that, in terms of the newspapers. I mean, to be honest with you, the Oldham Times one did report quite a lot actually, and they were okay in the end. So I thought
But let's be honest. You know, the Oldham Times, Business Insider, these type of outlets that we're talking about are not the type of outlets which come when it gets sticky. Anyway. No worries. Go ahead.
Just I guess the point is that even the BBC had to produce an article about Palestine Action a few times. You know what I mean? And when they've had these huge actions, is the only time the mainstream media just couldn't ignore it, because it was just too interesting a story. And that's obviously the way in which direct action sometimes can penetrate, where a very good valuable campaign that was being run locally wasn't definitely penetrating. And the same was true. We got in the Manchester Evening News when we were on the roof in July 2019. But I just wanted to put to Mehek a little bit based on what you said before, because Mehek is one of the many young people that came out and just in response to the bombings in May. And you know, you showed no fear at all, and you spoke powerfully like a lot of others did. And I think what Low-Key was talking about in terms of the pressure on Muslims, especially young Muslims, to with the prevent scheme, to try and keep people in line, to stop people talking out about things like Palestine. You know, you came through and just didn't worry about that like a lot of others. What was it that really, you know, brought that out of you? And were you aware of having to keep quiet or, you know, having to be careful or anything like that? And how did you get through that, if you like, or, you know, not worry about it?
I think I was just passionate because no one else was coming out to do anything about it, and I felt responsible for it. Like a lot of people, like in schools, they'd get in serious trouble just for having to write Palestine or having the flag. They'd get excluded from school, which was absolutely ridiculous. So I thought, it's not going to faze me. I wish I had the courage to be like the activists that went on the roof and caused destruction, but I'm not like them. But even coming out and doing the speeches and blocking the roads, that was enough for me. That was me showing that I am all in and I don't really care, to be honest.
Mm. Your family's been very supportive, hasn't it, as well?
Very, yeah.
Which probably helps. Do you think that helped get you through? And I was going to say, really, what would you say to other young people that may be slightly wary in terms of like you and what you did and how you overcame all that? And what would you say to others about the importance of doing it?
I just think if you know in your heart what is right, then go for it. It shouldn't stop you. My family they had my back the entire time, which obviously was a huge help. And hopefully younger people will be able to see what I did and the speeches I gave, and hopefully I inspired a lot of people to do what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also important for us to be clear about the bonds that exist between Elbit Systems and the network of lobbying and influencers within the British parliamentary system. Now, of course, Elbit came out of Sultan Systems, which was founded by Shlomo Zabludowicz. Now, Shlomo Zabludowicz is the father of Pojo Zabludowicz. And Pojo Zabludowicz founded the biggest Israel lobby group in this country, BICOM. It's an organization which is also founded by Trevor Chin. You know, Trevor Chin funded Keir Starmer's leadership. He funded Tom Watson. He funded David Lammy. He funded Angela Rayner, Ian Austin, Ruth Smith. Zabludowicz also funds Ruth Smith and Luke Akehurst, who is on the NEC of the Labour Party. Trevor Chin from BICOM funds an organisation called Labour Together, which he is one of the directors of, alongside Lisa Nandy, who was actually simultaneous to being funded by this real column and icon of the Israel lobby in this country, Trevor Chin. Lisa Nandy was also the chair of Labour's Palestine Solidarity campaign. So we really have to look quite critically at these bonds that exist. In addition to that, Lord Stuart Pollack of the Conservative Party was chairman of the Westminster Connection Associates. It was a very well-known and very well-connected lobbying group within Parliament, and Elbit was one of its customers at the same time that Lord Pollack was the chair of the Conservative Friends of Israel. And in fact, Elbit's chairman in Britain was secretly recorded in 2012 making the claim that Elbit had piggybacked on the Conservative Friends of Israel to gain access to particular decision makers. We also know that on the Conservative Friends of Israel sponsored trips for MPs that have taken place to the apartheid state, those trips have included visits to Elbit Systems headquarters. So that is the extent of this integration between the lobbying system and Elbit. And as was mentioned before, Elbit has a significant amount of contracts with the Ministry of Defense. It also has a subsidiary that directly is linked with the Ministry of Defense in a very, very incestuous way. So the names of their, what are the names of their? We know Affinity, we know Instro Precision. There's another Elbit subsidiary. Is it Wakas?
UAV engines.
UAV
engines.
UAV engines, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Elite KL as well.
Yeah.
This is the 5 major factories, if you like, across the UK. And then you've got the 5 other offices and sites and some RAF collaborations as well. So it's very entrenched.
Yeah.
It's very entrenched. And, right from the beginning, when actually there were first actions with London Palestine Action at the Shenstone arms factory, the UAV engines in Staffordshire, we knew that this was going to be a major task. And it's only just, I'd be honest with you, the last couple of years since the direct action went through the roof and so many started queuing up, that it shows the power of what you can do to a sitting site that is an arms manufacturer, a static building, even with protection and security and everything else, to some organization which is a very powerful weapons company with a lot of strands, with a lot of connections. And obviously everything that you've described is vital, and something that you do so well is to follow the money, because it is about that ultimately. You see what happens to Lisa Nandy and obviously David Lammy and lots of others speaking out for Israel and jumping on board many of the false accusations and exaggerated accusations of anti-Semitism once they've received a lot of funding from big Israeli backers. It's not difficult. It's really, really not. It's very provable. It's really, the accounts are there. And obviously, a lot of these people, once they are, given extra rewards for this and think, I'm just going to get a load of abuse, I won't speak about the Palestinians, no matter how much I know about what's happening to them. And Elbit is the same. Elbit is entwined and very much close to a lot of these powerful people in England, business organizers, also a lot of weapons deals they're trying to make with other British weapons manufacturers, and joint training as well with the British Army and the RAF, and a lot of systems management, they call it, but it's actually about technology to produce, to organize and coordinate weapons via computers. So all of this is their approach. But we have shown again and again that you can still shut these factories down, and Palestine Action is still going after, a year and a half, 2 years, still as strong as ever, with way more support than ever, and as a great example to what is effective now and what you can do, because so many people, like Mehek says, feels helpless, that they can't do anything. But now this has proven that there is something very concrete, very tangible to do. And if and there are so many people that have got it in the tank, and you may even get off by disrupting these arms factories directly and smashing up the weapons. But equally, there's lots of roles for others to support that, to mobilize outside the factories, to take action. And people like Mehek and others and younger people that had come forward, they were vital components of that. And now, I did want to hear from Mehek what this might mean for the future for her and others, because you now can believe that you can make a change. Young people come in Oldham. Oldham's one of the poorer areas in England. And, now younger people are saying, God, I never thought we'd actually, could actually achieve anything here. And they did. And so together, the community mobilizing with the people that are taking direct action, were able to counter all of this extraordinary, powerful machinery and connections and deals that Elbit was making with people high up in England in both the weapons and political spheres, and win. So this is the absolute lesson that we have from the victory, and that no matter what level a company is trying to make deals. One thing I would add, though, very importantly, with the British government, it's not. I don't think it's lost on them, even the British Tory government, that Israel is always overstepping the mark. You've seen it with Pegasus recently, where they're spying on British powerful people, politicians. Same in America. They got chucked out of America. This was an Israeli-backed spyware system that was incredibly advanced, that was hacking into people's phones. And they were doing that of very, very powerful people, even people that you would suggest would be their allies. So I think there's a lot of skepticism. The same was true when we had that undercover Al Jazeera investigation, where there was a guy who literally had a light on and was saying he would take down a British member of parliament, Alan Duncan. And so these were moments, I think, when even the British government and British intelligence, and probably even the arms makers themselves, would be slightly wary about how much real collaboration they could get away with. But like you say, the money often talks, and it's no mistake. And as Sheer Heaver has reported, seeing just the extent to which Elbit has expanded, both in England and the rest of Europe and beyond, is a sign that if there's money to be made with the arms industry, and Israel has that, what they would call a strategic advantage of having a captive population on whom they test their weapons, the Gaza laboratory, then that obviously is seen by other arms makers and governments as a major appeal to buy their weapons and purchase their arms that have been, carefully developed with a captive population.
Yeah, I mean, and on the mention of Pegasus is the project of NSO Group, which of course was started by Unit 8200 military intelligence from the IDF, who surveil Palestinian electronic communications and blackmail them in many cases. This spyware, which hacks people's phones and was found to have 50,000 victims, among them dissidents, journalists from across the world, family members of royal families in the Gulf. But in addition to that, British Gas, which is owned by Centrica, it employs 28,000 people. Now, the Financial Times broke the story that workers in the company had their pensions invested in the NSO Group. The NSO Group, which of course has Sherry Blair on the morally elastic Sherry Blair on its board. This British Gas, right? This well-known aspect of British society invested huge amounts of money from their employees' pensions into the NSO Group. Now, when the Financial Times broke the story, the only paper that I could see that covered it afterwards, and we're talking 16 hours later, was the Luxembourg Times. The Luxembourg Times covered that story before any other British paper. Now, Centrica has deep, deep bonds with the Israeli state. Centrica, this is the company that owns British Gas. It is also invested in Elbit Systems' startup EcoCare Technologies, which ironically is a company which is about caring for people in old age. So these are the contradictions of capital, and these are the hypocrisies of the system within which we live. It's been fantastic to be joined by you three today. We could talk for a lot longer. I hope we'll have you back, Wakas. I hope we'll have you back, Adi. And of course, thank you to Mehek, who is going away for another lecture in her studies of forensic science. You know, this is the future. Big salutations to Oldham. I hope to see you all soon and kiss every single one of you on the forehead. You have made Oldham a place of legends for people all over the world and will be an inspiration for millions when history is told. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thanks to you too for coming down and performing for all of us before it was. So much appreciated. That was a big, big monumental day for us in Oldham as well. Thank you.
I just want to add, when he did come down, we were going to think of shutting down for Christmas, but we went, do you know what, Loki's come. We've got an extra 100 people that are up for it. We're going to have to keep going. So thank you. Thank you, Loki.
Thank you. Amazing. Thanks so much, guys.